Welcome, everyone. I think most of you know me. I'm Dr. Douglas Dow. I'm the Associate Dean of the Hobson Wildenthal Honors College, and I am the Director of our university's Office of Distinguished Scholarships. Today, I'm going to be presenting on the Schwarzman Scholarship Program. This is the third in a series of Teams-based seminars on some of the distinguished scholarships that I'm going to be doing. I'm very happy that you can all be joining me. We are going to be recording this, so we can be posting this as well. I'm going to be going through talking about the scholarship, and I put together a little PowerPoint that I'll also be going through. And at the very end, I'm going to open things up for questions. So my PowerPoint discussion is going to be probably about 30 or so minutes, and then we'll have plenty of time for taking Q&A. So I am going to share my screen here. So welcome everyone to the Schwarzman Scholarship Workshop that we are hosting on the Schwarzman Scholars. So what is a Schwarzman Scholar? What is the purpose of this scholarship? The bottom line is that the Schwarzman Scholarship allows for students to spend 1 year within the Schwarzman College located in Tsinghua University in Beijing, China for 1 year. All students that are part of this program earn a master's degree in global affairs. It's sort of a broad catch-all master's degree. We'll talk a little bit more about all the things that you can be doing with it. And it is just an opportunity to learn about China, to learn about China's place within a broader economic, social, political, cultural framework, to interact with a lot of different people, and most especially to have the opportunity to be meeting all of the different leaders in politics, in science, in industry, in entrepreneurship that the Schwarzman bring in. It's a great opportunity. One thing I want to say off the bat, we can talk a little bit more about this as time goes on. The Schwarzman Scholarship, while allowing students to spend a year in Tsinghua University and Beijing, China, and to begin to learn Chinese at whatever level people are. This is not a scholarship that is only designed for people that are interested in China or that are China scholars. Certainly those people are properly encouraged to be applying, but this is a broad scholarship that's meant to introduce a broad selection of the next generation's leaders to China and to hopefully forever engage our next generation of leadership with China, with the Chinese economy, Chinese politics, Chinese culture for the rest of their life. So this is a way of allowing future leaders to engage in a very deep, meaningful way in an early stage of their life with China. What do you get when you are a Schwarzman Scholar? Schwarzman Scholarship pays for your tuition at Tsinghua University. It pays for any fees associated with being at Tsinghua University, your room and your board. Everyone lives in Schwarzman College. I'll show you a picture of that in just a minute, as well as takes your class there. It pays for your travel to and from Beijing at the end of the beginning and end of the academic year. One of the things that Schwarzman scholars are able to do is go on a number of different study tours to different parts of the country. Obviously, and we can talk briefly about this a little bit later. Obviously, some of these in-country study tours have been suspended under the conditions required by COVID-19. But once that has returned, there's going to be a lot of in-country travel and study tours paid for by the Schwarzman Foundation, as well as any books, supplies. You have your own laptop to be using during your time as a Schwarzman Scholar. Your health insurance is paid for. You have a personal stipend that allows you to be able to have some spending cash while you are there. Basically, what it means is that for 1 year in Beijing, you have no financial obligations, you have no financial concerns or financial needs. Tsinghua University is the premier university in China. It is year after year ranked as the #1 university in China. It's sort of the Harvard of China, if you will, and it is usually either #1, #2, or #3 of the best or most important universities in East Asia, and typically it is in the top 15 globally. So Tsinghua University is a very important, well-known university, founded in 1911, very globally well-known. And Schwarzman's College, let me just show you a picture of Schwarzman College. This is a building that was built less than a decade ago. It is state-of-the-art. It is a beautiful building, 200,000 square feet. The residents, the scholars of the Schwarzman program, they live at the college, they have their meals at the college, and they take their courses and gather with guest lecturers and guest speakers and guest professors at the college, which is nested within Tsinghua University. As their time as scholars go on, they're able to be taking classes beyond the Schwarzman College in the broader university, and to be able to engage a little bit more broadly with the offerings of Beijing, one of the world's great megacities. Here's just a picture of some of the Schwarzman scholars with their purple colorings. Purple is the sort of color of the Schwarzman program itself, meeting in one of the foyers at Schwarzman College. The Schwarzman Scholarship is a new scholarship. It was created by a gentleman by the name of Stephen Schwarzman, who is an American financier, and who was really interested in getting Americans to engage more deeply with China. And so Schwarzman invested about a decade ago $100 million of his own wealth, raising about 4 times that amount to create the Schwarzman Scholars Foundation. It is meant to be something akin to the Rhodes Scholarship of East Asia. We have only gone through 5 cycles. The first year that we were allowed to begin to have students apply to be Schwarzman Scholars was 2015. And so we have had 5 cycles so far, 5 years. And in that amount of time, the University of Texas at Dallas has had 2 Schwarzman Scholars, Matt Salm and Carlos Rodriguez. There are their pictures, selected for the years 2018-19 and 19-20. Yes, that means that Carlos was a Schwarzman Scholar last year when COVID hit China, and in probably mid-February, the Schwarzman Scholarship program began to shut down and go virtual. and Carlos had to spend the last 4 months of his scholarship doing it virtually in the United States, back home. That is likely to be the case as well for the Schwarzman program as it is existing for the 2020-2021 year. But the plan is, such that we can determine, the plan is for the 2021-2022 academic cycle, that is the cycle that anyone applying this time would be applying for. The plan is for it to be held at Schwarzman College, at Tsinghua University in Beijing, and hopefully that will in fact be the case. But I wanted to both recognize our 2 Schwarzman scholars, as also to recognize that despite the fact that this is an incredibly competitive scholarship, it is at the level of the Rose and the Marshall Scholarship in terms of its competition. That said, in 2 out of the 5 cycles of competition, University of Texas at Dallas has placed Schwarzman scholars. So we are very excited and proud, and I am very eager to be adding a 3rd, a 4th, a 5th picture to our UTD Schwarzman Scholars slide. Okay, so let's just talk a little bit about the program itself. Everyone that is a Schwarzman Scholar comes in and is taking a unified degree program. It is a master's degree in global affairs, and there is a core curriculum that everyone is going to be taking that involves current issues regarding global affairs and governance, leadership courses, as well as a specific course on Chinese political, economic, and social reform, with a primary focus on the developments of China over the last 40 years, as it has sort of opened itself up to global affairs and to incredible economic development. There's also a number of different elective classes that you can be taking. In its early iterations, there were a number of different degree programs that people could be taking within the Schwarzman College, but it got a little bit confusing, and so they just created one sort of catch-all umbrella degree, but one that allows students to be focusing upon things like public policy or economics and business, international studies. There's also some opportunity to be focusing upon language, literature, and culture and history, a sort of more humanities dimension of this. But the main goal is to allow people to sort of have a broad engagement with an understanding of China and China's place broadly within global affairs at its breadth. 2 other things that I think are noteworthy. First is language instruction. Everyone in the Schwarzman program will be taking Chinese classes. Many of the scholars are going to come in with no experience with the Chinese language. That is fine. That is not an obstacle for being competitive for a Schwarzman. And those individuals will begin at a beginning level. Others may already have had training in the Chinese language, and they may be at an intermediate or an advanced level, and there will be classes that allow for each individual to be taking Chinese instruction with instructors and with a cohort of other scholars that are going to be, roughly speaking, at their level of experience. The last thing I want to talk about before I sort of talk about what it means to be a good fit for the Schwarzman is the guest speaker series. The Schwarzman Scholarship, and if you go onto its website, you see a list, as long as your arm, of all of the guest speakers that at different times they have brought in, sometimes just to be there for a day or two, other times to be giving a series of lectures or symposiums over the course of a week or 2 weeks. They're bringing in scholars and academics from all fields of study. They're bringing in politicians and former politicians, former world leaders, diplomats. They're bringing in entrepreneurs and CEOs of major global companies, and giving the Schwarzman Scholars the opportunities to get to know these individuals, to hear these individuals, to engage with them. It's really like a series of your own personalized TED Talks brought right into your living room, quite literally speaking, happening again and again and again. And that ability to really just get a breadth of engagement with leaders in politics and economics, in business, in science, in technology, and engineering, in academia, um, and to do so in a very loose, collegial, and personal, upfront environment is, I think, perhaps one of the greatest aspects of the Schwarzman Scholarship Program. The Master's in Global Affairs is not meant to specialize people in any one particular framework. It's really there to allow for a breadth and a true diversity of exploration. Okay, eligibility requirements. Some pretty basic eligibility requirements. And my focus here for this talk is going to be with what is the bulk of the students that I'm coming into contact with, which is American students. I should say that every year the number of Schwarzman scholars changes a little bit, but over the last few cycles, they have been selecting about 125 to 140 scholars around the globe. 40% of Schwarzman scholars are U.S. citizens. 40%. 20% of Schwarzman scholars are Chinese citizens, and that includes mainland China, that includes Hong Kong, Macau, and Taiwan. All passport holders from these places are considered Chinese students, and they make up 20% of the cohort of Schwarzman scholars. The remaining 40% are people from around the globe in any country, not the US or China. So 40% of the cohort are U.S. citizens, 20% Chinese students, and the 40% from the rest of the globe. My focus is going to be on U.S. students because that's primarily the individuals we are talking about. There is no GPA requirement. There is no citizenship requirement. If you hold a Chinese passport, you have a different date of application and a different deadline. A deadline that for this cycle is actually passed. But for anyone that is a U.S. passport holder or the passport holder of any other country other than China or Taiwan, your deadline, talk about this a little bit, but your deadline is going to be September the 22nd. So it's going to be early fall. You need to have an undergraduate degree. You need to be at least 18 years old, but not yet 29 years old. There is an important emphasis upon academic achievement and academic qualifications, but there is no GPA requirement. So some pretty basic eligibility requirements, not a lot of them. Let me just sort of stop here. and talk a little bit more broadly. Who are the Schwarzman Foundation looking for? What makes somebody a good fit? Now, obviously, a good fit means that you are interested in spending a year in Schwarzman College at Tsinghua University in Beijing, China. You're interested in taking Chinese language classes and in engaging both on the intra-Chinese trips and research junkets you'll be taking, as well as being engaged with all of the myriad guest speakers and symposiums that the Schwarzman is putting together for you. Above and beyond that, there are two things to keep in mind. The Schwarzman is looking for high creative academic achievement in all of the different fields. There's no GPA requirement, but they are looking for dynamic, creative young scholars in all of the different fields. There is no particular academic field that is in any way preferred within the scholarship program, but they are looking for signs of academic creativity, curiosity, and achievement. Second criteria is leadership. This is a scholarship of leadership. The goal of the Schwarzman is not dissimilar to that of scholarships like the Rhodes Scholarship or the Marshall Scholarship, in which they are attempting to identify, to the degree that you can, identify the future leaders of the next generation, the future leaders in any number of different fields, in business and entrepreneurship, in science, in research, in academia, in politics, in the nonprofit sphere. Leaders within any number of different fields, and to, at the early stage of their career, involve them and engage them in a dialogue with China. The idea behind the program is that the cohort of Schwarzman scholars provide aid to creating bridges between China and the United States for the next generations to come. So academic achievement and leadership potential, those are the two criteria that are going to be most significant for determining who's going to be a good fit for a Schwarzman. Let me just talk a little bit about the application itself. The application is not a particularly onerous or difficult application. There are places where you have to fill in some basic information, your academic program, your major, any languages that you are proficient in, any professional experiences that you've had, working and employment, for example, any experiences that you've had abroad. They want to know about leadership roles or awards or scholarships that you have won up until now, and any other sort of recognition. So there's a place for some basic information. You're going to need your transcripts, your official transcripts from UTD and any other university if you have gotten grades that are not absorbed onto your UTD transcripts. You're going to need to post a resume. A resume that's going to be your resume, formatted as you like, but a maximum of 2 pages. So a curriculum vitae, a resume with a 2-page limit. You're going to have an optional 1-minute video introduction that you can be recording on your laptop or on your cell phone, just giving a 1-minute introduction that you'll be posting a link to. It says it's optional. I don't like to think of it as optional. I think that you should be doing it. There are no requirements for the Schwarzman application that you be endorsed by UTD. This is an application that, unlike something like the Rhodes or the Marshall or the Truman or the Goldwater, where you have to actually be nominated or endorsed by the University of Texas at Dallas, that is not required. I am happy to be working with people on a Schwarzman application if that is something that you're interested in doing. But this is something that does not require any type of official action by the university. You need 3 letters of recommendation. I'll talk a little bit more about that later in my talk. But there are 3 essays that make up the heart of your application for a Schwarzman. There is a leadership essay, which is 750 words. There is a basic statement of purpose essay of 500 words, and a short answer, tell us something about yourself, of 100 words. So what I've done here on the screen that you're seeing here is I've just cut and pasted the basic language of the leadership essay that they are looking for. They want to know, in what ways do you exhibit the characteristics, the personality of a leader? Now, a couple of things to note, and hopefully you've had the opportunity to sort of look at some of the bullet points that the Schwarzman has created. 2 things that I want to note off the bat. 1, almost everyone applying for the Schwarzman is a senior in college. That means that there are a limited number of opportunities to actually be achieving things through leadership. What they're looking for is not that you are part of something big, but rather they're looking at your persona, your character, your personality. They're looking for that type of interpersonal dynamic behavior that suggests that in the decades to come, you are going to be a leader. So they're really looking for you to be talking about yourself, your personality, your characteristics. Even though they want detail, what matters is not what you did. What matters is what type of engagement you displayed, how you went about doing things and leading. Second thing to note about leadership is that leadership means really different things to different people, but also to different cultures. The Truman Scholarship, which is also about leadership and public service, has a very, what I like to think of as a very agonal idea of leadership. Leadership for the Truman Scholarship means getting people to do things they would not otherwise do. For the Udall Scholarship, a scholarship about environmentalism, they have an idea of leadership that involves creating coalitions of people that would not otherwise exist. A little bit more of a gentle community building idea of leadership. There are a lot of different ways in which leadership can be defined, and a lot of these ways determine and are based upon the particular culture of which you are a part. The Schwarzman Scholarship is one of the most global scholarships that we have. It is open to citizens of any nation on earth. And so what does it mean to be a leader? That's up to you, the applicant, to describe. You are able to explain your own particular theory or practice or paradigm of leadership that you are exemplifying. So leadership doesn't mean just one thing or one idea to the Schwarzman. It can mean a number of different things, and part of your goal in thinking about what does it mean for me to be a leader is to think about, well, what does leadership for me mean? How do I want to define that important yet ultimately undefinable concept. So you've got the leadership essay, 750 words, not a lot of words. So this is an essay, probably the most difficult part of the application, because you're really going to have to figure out what you want to say and really be able to capture your own voice, because you don't have a lot of words to actually be expressing that. Beyond the leadership essay, there is a statement of purpose. In other words, why do you want to be a Schwarzman Scholar? What is it that you are seeking to get out of it? The Schwarzman Scholarship is by definition multidisciplinary. People from any different discipline, any walk of life, preparing themselves for leadership in any career are potential good fits for the Schwarzman. So that really does lead to the question, why does spending 1 year as a Schwarzman Scholar in Tsinghua University and Beijing, China, make sense to you? What do you want to achieve out of this? How will you leverage your year of immersion within China into shaping and developing your longer term future goals and careers? That's your statement of purpose essay, 500 words, even shorter than leadership. And then you've got the short answer. Here's what they say. Tell us something about yourself that we would not otherwise know based upon the materials in this application. That's for you to show some amount of creativity and to be able to sort of think about ways that allow somebody who may never actually meet you or talk to you to get a sense of who you are above and beyond what they learned from your resume, your letters of recommendation, and your two other essays. This is a place where students, if they are prepared, are able to sort of, throw a curveball and answer something that's sort of creative in terms of how they want to present themselves to their readers. So as I said, these three essays, the leadership essay, the statement of purpose essay, the short answer, make up the sort of creative heart of the application that also includes basic information, transcripts, a curriculum vitae, resume of 2 pages, the 1-minute video where you're going to be sort of giving a hi, my name is blank type of a brief introduction to yourself for a 1-minute video, so that they just get a sort of sense of how you're able to present yourself in what is, albeit a rather artificial and awkward engagement where you are simply introducing and talking to yourself for a minute. Last comes the letters of recommendation. Letters of recommendation, which are also due on September 22nd at 11:59 p.m. That is also the date that your application is due. You need 3 letters of recommendation. And they have identified what are the 3 different types of letters that they want. One, they want a letter that's primarily going to be talking about your academic abilities, your academic achievements, your intellectual qualities and capacities and creativities. That's going to be a letter from probably the faculty member at this university that knows you best, your intellectual mentor. So that's going to be one that wholly speaks to the academic achievement and ability part of the selection criteria. Then they want another letter that's going to be speaking to leadership capacities. That can be a faculty member, but it also can be somebody who was a former employer of yours, or somebody who was your supervisor at an internship. That could be somebody who is the faculty or staff supervisor of a student group or organization of which you have held leadership roles. A wide variety of different people. It does not have to be a faculty member, even though it can, but they need to be able to talk concretely about your leadership skills. Third letter is more of a catch-all letter. It can be focusing more upon academic abilities, can be focusing more upon leadership, or doing both. This is a scholarship that sends students to China. So it can be a scholarship that talks about an individual's cultural competencies, their ability to do well in a variety of different foreign environments, for example. So you have a third letter that can be any number of different things, but one letter needs to be about academic abilities, achievement. Another letter needs to be primarily about leadership. Obviously, you're going to want to be selecting three-letter writers that can speak directly about you, concretely, that can give examples of your academic abilities, examples of your leadership. A lot of people will regularly ask me, does it make sense to get like a big name? Somebody who may not know me all that well, but who's a big name, or somebody who may hold a lower title but knows me really well. And the answer in almost every single case is you choose the individuals who know you the best and who are able to speak directly, personally about who you are, with the ability to spend the time that it does take to give concrete examples of your intellectual capacities, specific instances of your leadership characteristics, for example. You want people that are able to speak and to know who you are. Sorry. Last slide, and then I'm going to sort of open it up for some more questions. Deadline. The drop dead deadline is 11:59 Eastern Time. That would be 10:59 p.m. Central Time, Dallas time, on September the 22nd, 2020. So a little more than 2 months away, plenty of time to be able to put together from scratch an excellent Schwarzman application. You are able to apply for Schwarzman yourself. Obviously, you need the letters of recommendation, but you do not need any official university endorsement or letter of recommendation. However, I am open and happy to be working with anyone that is going to be applying for a Schwarzman Scholarship program. I have one of the most easily remembered email addresses on campus. It is simply dougdow@utdallas.edu. Shoot me an email, and that's going to be the easiest way to for us to sort of set up a structure of advisement if you are going to be applying for a Schwarzman scholarship program. One thing, and I'm just going to close with this, the drop dead deadline is September 22nd, which means that everyone around the world is going to be like attempting on the 22nd to submit their application. Schwarzman Scholars program has a pretty good website, but it's not perfect, and websites do crash. I always recommend that you submit your final application at least 72 hours before the drop dead deadline. Whenever there's a requirement for university endorsement, I'm able to enforce an earlier deadline. Here, I can only recommend and exhort you don't wait until September 22nd. Get it in on September 18th or September 19th. Give yourself that time because the website gets slow, and it has in the past crashed for some period of time on the last 24 hours of the open cycle. So with that, I'm going to go back to my screen here, and pardon me. I would like to open up the floor. It is for questions. We have a full hour allotted for this, so we've got plenty of time for questions. So if you can just raise your hand, I will call on you, unmute your microphone, ask your question, and I will attempt to be as responsive as I can. And if I don't know the answer, I'll write it down and I'll help figure out what the answer is and get that to you. So questions? Either everyone's a little bit shy or I've overwhelmed people with so much information that they're not yet aware of what they know or don't know.
You can type your question in the chat box as well.
Absolutely. And thank you for that reminds me to open up my own chat box. So if you don't want to raise your hand and ask your question, feel free to type it in the chat box. I'm looking at the chat box right now. I must say, I think that the Schwarzman Scholarship is a truly excellent scholarship. It is a scholarship that is certainly looking for a certain type of personality, but it is open and eager to have people from any number of different disciplines. Matt Salm, our university's first Schwarzman winner, was a math major. Carlos Rodriguez was a major in international global business in JSOM. So a wide variety. It's not just people that are specialists in China, although those are obviously very, very welcome to be applying as well. It's a great application because it really gets you to be thinking about who you are, what your intellectual persona is as a scholar, as a future leader, but without being necessarily overwhelming. This is not one of the most difficult applications to be applying for. Well, does not look like we have any questions. Maybe I did such a thorough job in explaining the application that any questions that come up would be coming up from those that are actually applying for the scholarship. So I'm going to just make one more solicitation on questions, either by raising your hand or typing one into the chat box. I had the opportunity last summer when the National Association of Fellowship Advisors met in Minneapolis to have a small gathering with a couple of the staff members of the Schwarzman Foundation. And I am happy to say that all of the people that run the Schwarzman know University of Texas at Dallas, know UTD, not just because we have been applying and having multiple applicants to the scholarship every year that it's been around for all 5 cycles, but also because of our two Schwarzman scholars themselves that had an absolutely wonderful time and made a really strong impression. So I'm happy to say that the Schwarzman Foundation knows exactly what a high caliber school we are and what excellent undergraduates we produce. So I'm always enthused to be talking about and to be answering questions about the Schwarzman. If there are no other questions, I'm happy to bring this formal workshop and the recording to a conclusion. Everyone has my email. Ms. Kavanaugh has also typed my email into the chat box. So I'm happy to be working with individuals if this cycle or next year or the year after next you are interested in applying for a Schwarzman. I know that just sort of informally, I know that some of you who are on this workshop are rising seniors, others are juniors or sophomores. So I'm happy to be talking with people as the need may arise. I want to thank you all for spending some of your afternoon with me talking about the Schwarzman Scholarship Program. This is the third of our series of scholarships, and so keep an eye out for your Honors College email that comes out every Monday evening, and I will be offering other workshops, and we will be posting this recording at a later date. So I think I'm going to bring this to a close. Thank you all very much, and I will see you all later. And Ms. Kavanaugh, thank you once again for being our moderator and our recorder and making this all technologically work. Have a good afternoon, everyone.
Have a
Bye.
good one. Have a great afternoon.